There's a new movie on its way to select theaters September 12th titled Bang Bang. It's directed by Vincent Grashaw. It stars Tim Blake Nelson, Andrew Liner, Glenn Plummer, Kevin Corrigan, and also features Nina Arianda. And we had an opportunity to talk with the director, Vincent Grashaw, as he talked to us about who was originally supposed to star in this film, how Tim Blake Nelson got involved, capturing the emotional essence in the film, Detroit, and so much more. And here's what he had to say. Check it out. I love human pieces. I love stories that doesn't they don't try to do more than just tell relatable human stories. So I want to ask you because you've dived in a lot of different genres of things. What was it about this script particularly that you were so interested in telling the story for?
So, I mean, I grew up really close to the sport of boxing. Just in my family, none of my family were professionals or anything, but my grandfather was a boxer in the '40s, and he always taught me and my dad. And so in the '80s and '90s, we would watch pay-per-view Tyson fights, and back in the day, like De La Hoya, just all in the '90s when boxing was just popping. So
Yeah.
I just had fond memories of that, and I love the sport, and that's essentially just my interest in the sport itself. But you know, a script like this came along to me through a producer friend, Jesse Ozeri, who was an EP on the movie. He brought it to me. He was like, Vince, you should read this. And the script kind of spoke for itself. It's like you don't come across things like this. And I was fascinated how it dealt with a boxer like post career and sort of what they're left with, and sort of forgotten almost, and what they give up for the sport and our entertainment, and sort of by the end of the film, you sort of see the result of those tragedies, and it's kind of it moved me,
Yeah.
um, and I guess you're right. Like I'm sort of genre agnostic when it comes to anything, but if I like grounded human stories, and so this was one of those that I really responded to.
Yeah, yeah. It's shout out to Will Janowitz, right? He's the writer of this, and I mean, his resume reads a lot of grounded, gritty stuff like The Sopranos, Law and Order episodes, that kind of thing. So yeah, shout out to him for that. But let's talk about some of this cast because, of course, you got Tim Blake Nelson as the lead. Um, how did he get involved? Was it your first pick? How did he get in this? And how did you feel? What was it that he brought to this that just elevates the overall story for you?
I mean, I've been a fan of Tim's, for a very long time. Just he's one of those sort of legendary guys who he's a hyper intellect, so very smart guy, almost to where it's a little intimidating. But he's so gentle and sweet too, so it's never intimidating in the way you'd imagine. But it's funny because he wasn't the first person we went to. I mean, he knows this, so he's not, he won't be upset about it. But I had initially gone to him for my previous movie, my horror movie, and I wrote him a letter, and we had some mutual friends, and so he passed on it, but I think he remembered me, and so when I came to him with this, he took it serious, and in a way where you're lucky as a filmmaker, because a lot of agents and reps will kind of roadblock independent films from getting their clients, and Tim reads everything. And
Yeah.
so we made him an offer, and he read my letter, and you know he was really excited to do it, and the challenge. I think he loves a good challenge. So if you're a filmmaker out there, look, wanting to work with this guy, find a way to challenge him, and if it's a good script, he'll react to it. Before him,
Yeah.
initially I had gone to Andrew Dice Clay, and we were in talks with him,
Wow.
and he wanted us to wait because he had his tour and he was really busy, but he really liked it, it seemed. So he wanted us to wait, like, I don't know if it was like 6 or 8 months, and there was no guarantee if the money stays that long, and so we just couldn't wait. and that, and Andrew Dice, it's a different movie, obviously. But
Yeah.
he was a guy we went to prior. He was one of the first ones. We went to a couple other people, but when it got to Tim, it was exciting because it wasn't written necessarily for a featherweight at first, and I just
Okay.
like the idea of people not expecting somebody like Tim to be this kind of crabby, like outrageous asshole.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he really delivers it. Like he really gets lost in the character, and that's a lot of the praises that you got to give this film. Like he really puts you in this world, which I also wanted to commend you on the world building in this, for you, and you not being a native of Detroit. What made you want to put this film in Detroit?
well, Will had written it, and it was sort of I mean, it was in the script when I initially read it, so it just made sense. But
Okay.
that said, my grandfather, who was, like I said, in Golden Gloves boxing, he was in Saginaw, Michigan, and he
Mhm.
fought in Bay City, Saginaw. And so, the fact that it was in Michigan and sort of that connection to the sport, it just felt right. And Will, having, he has a Polish background, and sort of how it all connected, it just, in Hamtramck, is a Polish community out there. It just really kind of fit. And so it was more or less a no-brainer. It never questioned whether it should be that city. It just felt gritty and lived in.
So what were the challenges since you didn't even film out there? Like trying to make it, were there any, I should say, trying to make it feel authentic, or did you have anyone on site that could kind of speak to the culture of Detroit in any way?
Yeah, and so we filmed it in Covington, Kentucky, which is just over the bridge from Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And it had, when we scouted, I had done a movie out there previously. And so when we scouted, it just had that, just it fit. And having been to Detroit, and myself, and Will, and just a lot of the people involved did have Detroit connections, which I would have loved to shoot in Michigan and in Detroit. It's just they don't really have a tax rebate there anymore.
Mm,
And so if you shoot in Covington, Kentucky, you're sort of, it makes sense financially, from an investor standpoint. You're getting a rebate on 35% of everything you spend there. So, but it felt turnkey in a weird way. Like, I'm assuming if you with the settings and the homes and the way everything looked, it sort of has that same aesthetic.
yeah. Yeah, and I this last question, I mean, I really want to dive into this because a lot of the things that I love about this film, and like you said, it's a human piece. It's really about, the measure of man, and generational trauma and the heavy stuff. But it is a boxing movie, and I want to say thank you for really focusing more on the emotional aspect of, like you said, what a man is left with afterwards. You didn't focus a lot on the boxing, in the ring stuff. Was that on purpose? Did you want to not glorify the in the ring stuff and focus more on the, I don't know, the emotional aspect of it? Was that on purpose?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's more of a character study, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, I mean, it's even as close as you're going to get to an anti-boxing movie, in the sense
Hmm.
that you have this guy, it's almost, the shadow of that sport and his history. To me, it was interesting to examine that, because most people don't know what boxers are left with post career. There's a lot of guys. I don't know if you're a boxing fan, like, with, from the 80s and 90s. There was
Yep.
a fighter named Gerald McClellan, who was like the next Roy Jones, and he had
Wow.
fought Nigel Benn in the UK, and he was winning that fight. It was about to, and he got punched, and he was taking a beating too, but he was the next Roy Jones. And then he had an episode in the ring, and he's dealing with that trauma for life. He's not able to walk. He's have to live with 24-hour care. And so there's guys like that your heart breaks for. And so this was never about, having some boxing action. There is a couple moments in the movie where it gets into that, and it kind of
Mm,
is the payoff. But the movie kind of you hit a fork in the road where you think it's one thing and the movie switches gears into something else. It doesn't. I was really appreciative of like the movie
Yeah,
kind of not going the way you'd expect it at one point, without spoiling anything. Um, and yeah, I think the obviously you want I also was really receptive to the humor in the script because I didn't want just
hmm
a heavy movie that was depressing or something. Like I felt there was so much humor in the Bang Bang character and just his demeanor in general. Even before Tim got involved, you can say it kind of flew off the page in that way. And Tim, really committing to the accent as well for
yeah,
that
yeah.
in that area. Um, he just gave it his all, and so you know when you're working with somebody like him, it's you don't have to do a lot because man, that guy put in 6 weeks of like training, getting in shape, learning the sport, and
Wow.
it was important for him and Glenn Plummer to both be able to they were both in boxing training prior.
Yeah, which and Glenn was an awesome addition as well. The whole cast is great. Andrew Liner, the kid's he's an up and comer. He's great too. I want to thank you for talking with me, Vincent. I don't want to keep you too long, but I want to
No
thank you
problem.
for this piece. I think it's an awesome movie. Definitely will be recommending it. I got my reaction out there already, so people can see it. Make sure you guys are checking this out in select theaters. September 12th. Bang bang.
Thanks, man.